happened here? So this is the very beloved and highly requested giant mature Cebu Blue. Unfortunately, my plans for selling this plant hit a little bit of a snag, and we'll discuss that later. But let's just talk about this plant in general. First of all, it is a favorite among houseplants enthusiasts because it is extremely gorgeous, and it breaks up all of the green of your collection. The full name is Epipremnum Pinnatum Cebu Blue. It is so named because it originally comes from the island of Cebu in the Philippines. And its blue color distinguishes it from the original green Epipremnum Pinnatum. Now, Cebu Blue makes a beautiful presentation in a hanging basket, and you almost always see it sold that way. But that is not how it grows in the wild. In a hanging basket, they have small leaves and are in a juvenile state. But if you allow those vines to climb, as they do in the wild, the leaves will begin increasing in size to the point that they begin to fenestrate and get absolutely enormous, just like any pothos. Now, you may not realize it, but your plant actually has a strategy in that hanging basket. It is putting out small vines and leaves in hopes of one day reaching the ground. It will then begin vining and creeping along the ground. The purpose for the vining is so that it can find something, hit it, and then begin to climb it and enter its mature state. None of your aroids want to be in a juvenile state. They all want to climb and become mature. So, why are the juvenile leaves small? Well, let's think about the jungle floor. The vine needs to be slim and trimmed to maneuver easily, and it can't do that with big, bulky leaves. Not to mention, there are animals moving around constantly down there that would rip a big leaf to shreds. And there are numerous hungry bugs that would eagerly decimate those large, delicious leaves. Not to mention, there's not much sunlight down there. Expending that amount of energy that it takes to produce a large leaf has to pay off for the plant, or it will use up its energy and not be able to replenish it with sunlight. The plant would just end up dying. So it will conserve that energy and shoot out tiny leaves or even leafless nodes until it hits something and begins to climb. The leaves will then begin increasing in size as the plant starts to climb again. So that brings us to these particular cuttings. What had happened was I got a bit too busy with life events last season. I potted these cuttings up and pretty much left them to fend for themselves. I wasn't able to list anything last year except Monstera cuttings, and these just continued growing. Unfortunately, they grew and grew to the point they actually grew off of their totems. And as we discussed, the leaves got smaller and smaller and grew down in search of something else to climb. Just imagine what the leaves of this plant would look like had it been allowed to just continue climbing. Those leaves would have been utterly massive by this point. It's a crime. So the vine grew down and began to creep until it actually hit another plant pot out there and began to climb it. You can see where it produced a bunch of leafless nodes, then it produced a tiny leaf, and then got right back to producing mature leaves with fenestrations. So this was the case for all of my pothos back there. They grow like weeds. They all grew off of their totems and got smaller in search of something to climb. Now these are easy to basically rehabilitate to begin growing large leaves again. You just need to give it what it's searching for, a totem. and it will begin to climb and produce large leaves again. Now, if this happens to you, you get a little too busy and your plants grow off of their own totems, there are two ways to remedy this. You could simply take the vine that has grown off and tie it to the bottom of the totem so it can start climbing again. That might actually look nice to fill in some of the barren areas at the bottom of your totem. But what I'm going to do is cut it where the leaves started to get small and give these plants an extended totem to climb. Those growth points will then send out new vines and begin climbing their totems. I can then propagate those nodes that I cut off. That's what I did with this plant. This one is from another plant that had grown off of its totem. I cut off the vine and propagated the top, as well as several other leaves. This plant has actually produced new leaves, so it is rooted and growing well. But I always caution to never repot a plant that has been potted less than 6 months. So it will need to stay in this pot for a few more months. And even though these cuttings are rooting well, I have to wait to see some new growth sprouting before I can put them up for sale. So these will be available for sale in a couple of months. And for this largest plant, I'm going to hold on to it until it gives me several new leaves, and I'll put it up for sale later in the season. But for these smaller ones, I'm going to put them up for sale now. Now, unfortunately, I grow everything outside, so the totems are quite haggard. If you don't like the look, you may be able to carefully pull the plant off of its totem to put it on a nicer, newer looking pole, but I'll leave that choice to you. I personally don't want to take the risk of snapping this plant to do that. Or you can just keep these totems. They may look a little bit bad, but every plant needs a wild bad boy past. Now, this plant was never placed on a totem at all. I just threw this cutting back there and forgot about it. But as you can see, the leaves are still quite large, even without being oriented to climb. The vines were just growing outward. You can imagine how large these leaves would be if they were strapped up and climbing a totem. And that's what they'll do in your home. This plant actually has 3 growth points. There's a vine down there, then there's a second vine, and a third vine was growing off of that vine, but I accidentally snapped it because I didn't realize it was growing into another pot. But as you can see, that growth point is preparing to produce a new vine. In any case, we'll put most of these for sale now, and if you don't see anything you like, circle back in a few months and we'll have more options. Now, no discussion of mature Cebu Blue would be complete without addressing the elephant in the room. I don't want to step on any toes, but the fact is most sellers are not selling mature Cebu Blue. When it comes to Cebu Blue and hanging baskets, those are always the true Cebu Blue. Most sellers either get those directly from Costa Farms or retailers who sell their plants. So those are definitely Cebu Blue. But when it comes to people taking cuttings from their backyards and selling, quote, mature Cebu Blue, those are almost never true Cebu Blue. Now, I want to make clear, I'm not implying in any way that they are intentionally being deceptive. Most sellers simply do not know the difference between Epipremnum Pinnatum, which is the green form, and Epipremnum Pinnatum Cebu Blue, which is a completely different plant. Most people who are offering mature Cebu Blue are actually offering the green form Epipremnum Pinnatum. Most sellers unknowingly use the term Epipremnum Pinnatum and Cebu Blue interchangeably, but they are in fact two different plants. So it falls on you to know exactly what you're buying. First of all, you will see that the color is dramatically different. Cebu Blue has an ashen, bluish tint to the leaves, whether it is juvenile or mature, while regular Epipremnum Pinnatum is glossy and dark green. Secondly, Cebu Blue has an almost bumpy textured leaf, while regular Epipremnum Pinnatum leaves are quite smooth. Also, the veins of Cebu Blue are very distinctive. They are always much darker than the rest of the leaf. However, you can hardly see the veins on a regular Epipremnum Pinnatum leaf. But the most telling trait is that Cebu has to be mature before it begins producing leaves with those beautiful fenestrations, while regular Epipremnum Pinnatum starts fenestrating quite early. So you pretty much have to be diligent and aware before buying, quote, mature Cebu Blue. Now, let me state again, these sellers aren't intentionally trying to deceive you. But the fact remains, most of them do not know what they are selling. So it's up to you to be an informed consumer. In any case, we have all three, and we'll give you cuttings of Epipremnum Pinnatum Green and the new Epipremnum Pinnatum Baltic Blue with your purchase of Cebu Blue. And we'll throw in cuttings of additional Epipremnum Aureums to round out your Pothos Hoard. Now, as always, once you root them, you must orient the new growth to climb so you can enjoy those fabulous large leaves and fenestrations. In any case, this is a gorgeous, easy plant to grow. Pothos are the best. They clearly don't require much care. And as you can see, they need little to no encouragement to grow you out of house and home. They will absolutely take over a space, if you let them, and you will have plenty of cuttings to share with friends and family. Come over and see us on our Etsy shop.